Hi, welcome to part 2 of my Devo7 walkthrough. Part 1, I went through model and system here, and for this part I will go through function, if you can see that blinking up there. In this function system there is quite a lot of information. Pitch curves, throttle curves, etc. And again, if you didn't watch the first part, I have the mini CP here that I have all my settings set up to, but I will try to explain where any differences might be if you're using the Devo7 for a different helicopter. And again, there are other good videos out there on the Devo7, but I haven't seen anything yet that takes you through the full walkthrough, and there's still a lot of questions that people tend to have. So we would hit enter, go into function. This is to reverse all your swash, or your servos here, your elevator, aileron. You can reverse your throttle, rudder. It's all your channels essentially that would be on your receiver. I have all mine for normal for the mini CP, but depending on which servos you're using and all that stuff, sometimes you might have to reverse things. Most importantly, make sure your swash is moving in the correct direction and your gyroscopes are all moving in the correct direction. And I went into that a little bit on the last video of how to know if it's correct direction or not. Your gyroscope should move in the correct direction. You should see it always try to fix itself. So when you tilt it this way, the swash should quickly move this way, and then it slowly moves back. The other way, it quickly move that way and slowly move back to try to keep it level. Alright. Also, I mentioned in the other video, I did uncover a bug in this firmware. So you might be able to switch your gyroscope, which any gyroscope in here is for your tail gyroscope, using the percentages in here. Mine, it won't have that. You won't see gyroscope listed here. At one point I switched my tail gyroscope to this knob and it won't let me switch back. It took me a little while to figure out what the heck was going on. But if your helicopter wants to spin like crazy, you don't have any gyroscope settings, then try and use this aux2 knob. So one more thing about your gyroscope, since I won't be able to have it on here. Above 50% is head hold, so basically that keeps the helicopter move like this. When you move it left, it stops when you stop moving. Below 50% is rate mode, so if you kick it over a little bit, it'll keep spinning. And even if you let go, even if you put this back in the center, it'll still keep spinning until you readjust it. Most people nowadays fly in the head hold mode. I find that a lot easier. Alright. Travel adjust. I have everything at 100%, but that'll adjust how far your servos move up and down. So you can minimize them if you need to. Typically 100% should do the trick. If you can see this. Subtrim. Right now I'm not using any subtrim, but for my bigger helicopters I do. And what you do before you set up any of your other stuff, you want to put all your, at mid-stick here, you want to put all of your servos at 90 degrees, and then the swash plate right in the middle, and so on and so forth, your mechanical setup. But a lot of the servo arms will be just slightly down or slightly up, and you use subtrim here to adjust them until it is 90 degrees. But after you adjust with subtrim, you usually have to go back through your receiver setup. Now the mini CP, you don't have a receiver setup, but other ones you will. My 3GX does. So you got your elevator, aileron, throttle, rudder, gear, pitch, pitch aux too. All your channels that are in your receiver will have a subtrim that you can adjust if you need to. A lot of the channels you won't use for most of these helicopters. DR and EXP. This one is fairly important. So, you got all your different channels you can do. Your elevator channel, let's say you go into that. Position 0, you want your DR at 100%, EXP linear. So what DR does, it adjusts the endpoints of this. So if you go over, let's say 50%, and you find yourself overcorrecting all the time and tipping the helicopter way over to one side or the other, you can limit your DR. 100% means it goes all the way over here. That is 100% is 100%. 50%, when you move the stick here, it's like you're only moving it halfway. So it tames this out a little bit. But you can't go too low or else you're not going to be able to correct yourself. I like 100%. That makes it easier to flip and all that good stuff. But if you find that you want a little more tame flying, you can lower your DR to maybe 80%, 70%. EXP, what that does, that makes it less sensitive in the middle, but you still have 100% of your movement. So linear, EXP positive, you might want around 20%. That way, right in the middle isn't as sensitive, but when you get to the very edges, it becomes more sensitive. And you can set this for your rudder, for your aileron. Aileron is typically left and right, elevators up and down. This is your collective pitch, this is your rudder. I like mine at linear. It just gives me a more predictable flight, but when I started out I had my EXP around 20-30%. And normal, so this is for all of your different, your DR and EXP, and you can adjust it differently. For normal is this switch all the way back, sorry, position 0, position 1, is actually, you can set these different switches to be 0 and 1 here. Normal is this, position 0 and 1, 2, 3 for different, depending on which switches you're using for that. What I do, I have them all set the same, so it doesn't matter where my switches are at. It makes it a lot easier. And I typically like to fly with in stunt mode anyway. So this is ST1, this is here. I also recommend, let's say you go position 0, 1, 2, you can set it all different, but I have it, and then switch, it just depends on where this is at. Like I said, set them all the same and you won't have to worry about anything. And ST2, I get there by, this is there. ST2 would just be all the way up. So there's 3 switches here. And throttle hold, I also have the same, because when I flip throttle hold, I don't want my controls to change at all. I want to be able to control it the exact same way I was before. Okay, so that's DR EXP. I hope that makes some sense. There's other videos that go on into detail about here, so I went through that fairly quickly. But the main thing is just set them all the same. You know, whether it's 20%, 30%, whatever you want. For EXP, DR, you might want around 80% if you're starting out. Throttle hold, you want it to be active. That's this switch up here. Enter, and then you go down. And you want it to be -% So that way it'll cut your blade. Your blades will just stop spinning whenever you flip this switch. So anytime I'm getting ready to crash and I don't think I can bail out, I don't think I can save it, I bail out and I flip that switch and then do what I can to minimize the damage, but then the blades stop spinning at least and they don't go flying everywhere. And yeah, basically negative 10%, or you can go negative as much as you want as long as the blade stops spinning. You might want positive if you have a gas engine and you don't want to totally kill your engine, but you want to set it on idle, but all of my helicopters are electric. Alright, throttle curve. Oh, you'll see this in some places. All that means is like if you have it bound to your helicopter, I don't have the battery in right now, but you can actually make it so when you're switching through here, it doesn't affect it right away, not until you hit enter. That way you can go through different settings without it just constantly changing or accidentally spool up your helicopter immediately when you didn't mean to. I recommend when you're making changes, for most of the changes, just unplug your helicopter. So you just hit enter to go through that. So your throttle curve you can change for everything. Normal mode here is with this flight mode switch all the way back. Hit enter to go into that. And then we go down to EXP, like what you saw in the last one. I could just turn it off and then not have to worry about what my settings on EXP are, but I actually have it on because I'm using that a little bit in the rudder. I find when I'm flipping and stuff, sometimes I accidentally, going up and down, I accidentally pull this left and right a little bit, so I don't want it to be too sensitive right in the middle. And so that way it's not too sensitive here, but it's when I get out here it's more sensitive. But I just use it for the rudder. So on, you can turn it off, but I have it on. So then, and this is normal mode we're in still for throttle curve. So you have 7 points. Point L, which is your low end, in normal mode is usually 0%. You can change that for some reason to down is up and up is down. I don't know why Walkera did that, but you can have 0% on normal mode. That basically what I do is I have it ramp up in normal mode. I'd never fly like this anyway. I just use normal mode to bind it, and then I flip to stunt mode, which is a constant throttle. But this is like down here is point L is 0%. I don't remember all the. Oops. Normal. Oops. Enter up, down, down here. Okay, and then point L, and then we can go to point 1. Inhibited. So I don't use point 1. Basically, you can use point 1, 2, 3, 4 if you want some weird looking curve. I think I just use the low end and the high end, and it just sets a linear in the middle. You can use low, middle, and high, and then it'll set it between your points. They let you inhibit these, so you don't have to go through and change it every single time, every one. But what I could do, let's say, normal mode. These menus are a little weird to switch between, so you'll see sometimes I go the wrong direction. If I did set it to active, then I can go and have it output at 25% or something. But what I want to do is inhibit it. And then we can go to point 2. Also inhibited, but you could set that maybe at 50%. Oops, I always exit out too when I could just use these. Go back in, normal mode, down. So point 2 is inhibited. Point middle, that I might actually have active. Yes, I do. and I have it at 75%. So basically I have it ramp up, that's this, point middle. This is point low, 1, 2, middle, you'll see 3, 4, and high, or something like that. And so for the middle, I have it already at 75%. So I want to spin my blades up fairly quick. So go back out of that. And then for 3 and 4, I have inactive, but you can activate them if you want. And then for point high, I have it 100%. Now, for my throttle curve for stunt 1 and stunt 2 are pretty similar, so I'll just go through those at the same time. Stunt 1 I have at 80% and stunt 2 at 90%. So what I did, I set my high point and my low point at 80%. So whether it's down here or up here, I get 80% throttle, and then I use this to lift off and land and stuff. And with doing this, you need it set like this if you want to try to flip them. And then I have point 1 and all the other points inactive, essentially. And then go back, I think, to stunt 2. I have everything at 90%. And that's usually where I fly. But depending on what your blade speed is, you can set 90, 80, but you want it straight across the board, so your throttle curve is just like a line. Other controllers, they actually show you a graph, which is nice. Makes a lot more sense. Okay, this is getting a little long, so let me go ahead. There's a lot of stuff too. Oops. Oh, I have my flight mode on. So there's a lot of stuff about that, a lot of videos about that on the internet. For this controller though, that's how you go through the menus. For throttle mix, you can change that so you up your throttle as you move your elevator forward or back. I just have it all similar. I don't use any of that. Oops, function, enter. Ptcrvs. There's a lot of information about this, so I'm going to go through it fairly quickly and just focus on this. But Ptcrvs, just real quick, what that does is affects how far up you go and down you go whenever you move this. So some people set it like tame in the center, higher and lower on the bottom and top. I like a linear amount. I also, another thing that I do, my Ptcrvs are set so that right at 50%, I have 0 pitch, which is straight. So that way, and then whether I'm flying right side up or upside down, it's all the same. 100% goes up, this goes down, and if you're flipped over, then this will bring you up and this will bring you down. So we go into the Ptcrvs. I also, for mode, for normal, stunt 1 and stunt 2, I leave my Ptcrvs the same. Some people in normal mode, they try to change that or whatever. I don't, because when I flip this switch, I don't want any crazy down or up. I just want it to be easy to flip between these modes. So I will take you through just one of these so that way we can see. So enter, we want stunt 2. Oops, stunt 2, enter. Expo on. Again, that's because I have a little bit set for my tail, my rudder. Point. The low end, I have a negative 70%, so that's negative pitch. And I only, oops, I hit that exit button all the time accidentally. Then this one is all I need to do. Okay, on the low end, yeah, negative 70.1, I inhibit it. You can set all your points if you want, but I just prefer to turn them off. I do the low end, the medium, and the high, and then Actually, with these, just the low and the high I could do because it's just a linear 0.2 inhibited, medium inhibited. What you would see though here is medium. I want at 50%. But essentially what I do, I go from -70 to +70. And the way I got that was actually looking at the physical amount of my blades. I want like about -10, 12% like this when it's down, and I want about +12% when it's up. So I adjusted these numbers until I got that. If it was higher, it was too high. And also whenever another thing, you don't want it too high because if you kick it all the way up, you'll bog down your motor and sometimes your tails flip too on you. So I like it. That takes a little bit of playing with, but -70 to +70 should do the trick for most people. At least give you a place to start, and then you can go from there. Stunt 1 and normal mode, I have all the same across the board. The only thing that changes is my throttle. Okay, so now exit out of there. Program mix, I don't use this at all, everything's inhibited. Monitor, this just shows you, see for some reason it's showing 1%, I probably need to calibrate it. But that's no big deal, it just shows you up, all the way up. You can monitor your different channels, aileron is left and right. Throttle, just to monitor all your stuff. Gear, rudder, aux 2, flight mode, it shows you where everything is at. Everything's in position 0. Now you might have seen, fail safe. This I need to set, but I just have everything on hold. So just keep it where it is. If it goes out of range, it's good to set this too. I haven't messed with it, especially with this little helicopter. It's not that big of a deal, but with the big ones, you want to make sure that your helicopter stops if it goes out of range or something happens. Training mode is kind of neat. I've never used this either, but let's say I want to let you fly one of my big helicopters, and we both have the same controller. You can actually hook a wire between the two of them. The other person can fly it, but if they're getting ready to crash or do something, then the teacher or whatever can take over automatically. So as soon as I would move my sticks, like I see it going into a tree, I'm like, whoa, and I want to move it out of the way or something, then it will take over. So you can let somebody else fly your helicopter, but you can take over if they're about to crash. So that's a pretty neat little thing, but I have never used that. Timer, I have it counting down. I have it set at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is for my little batteries. After 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I want it to beep. Let me know, warn me, and then so I can come in and land before I run out of battery. Some batteries will last 8 minutes, some will last 2 minutes, so it just depends on your helicopter that you're running. You can adjust this. And then whenever you want to start the timer, you just, when you're back, that's all, so we'll go back. See, it says 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So when you want to start it, you just push up there and it starts the countdown. You can push down to reset it. Alright, I believe that's it. Hopefully that helps. I realize this is a long video, but I could have gotten a lot of use out of that when I first got this controller, so I hope some other people can get some use out of it. There are other shorter videos out there if you just want a quick menu, going through the menus, but I tried to explain it more geared towards beginners. If there are other questions, let me know. I'm also in RC groups as Dilberto, Dilberto. Feel free to send me a message there too if you want. Alright, hope this helps.